Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday on the Daily Huddle, where we talk about everything relationships and communication. And I was wondering if anyone here knows what the difference between a poorly dressed person on a tricycle and a well-dressed person on a bicycle is. No one? Attire. Attire.
Clever.
Right.
That's right.
Clever. Very clever.
Very clever.
I like that.
I like that. Tire.
That's right. Gotta love a double entendre. All right. Well, on that note, we'll get started. Welcome to Wednesdays. And Tara will be joining us shortly. She's traveling today. And we're going to talk about how to savor the sweetness of life. But before we do, I want to ask some questions. I think I'll start with Fareed. How are you? And who are you going to hug today?
I am doing good. I am me. And today, I'm going to hug myself.
Ooh, I love that. I love a good self-hug. I have to remember that. That's one I don't often remember. Awesome. And Stan.
Yes.
What time is it?
Wow. The time is now, Kathryn. The only time that there is.
That's right, Stan. It's now. And I'm so glad you're here with us today now. And let's see, Chase. Where are you and what are you grateful for?
I am right here, right now. And I am grateful for all of my talents that I get to show to the world.
Ooh, I love that. That's awesome. Thank you, Chase.
You're welcome.
We're grateful for that too. And here comes Tara just in time. So the question today is, how do you savor the sweetness of life? And this is all about gratitude and mindfulness. So Chase saying that he's grateful for his gifts is the perfect segue. And we've talked about Tara's 6 strategies for joy, and this is one of them. It's called Savor. And it is about how to savor the moments in life. And yesterday was a really special day in our house. It was World Down Syndrome Day. And many of you know that my son Michael has Down syndrome. And Down syndrome is a chromosomal abnormality that changes the way the body and the brain develops, and it can cause physical and mental challenges. And it's celebrated, this is an interesting fact, it's celebrated on March 21st, 3/21, because people with Down syndrome have an extra copy, 3 copies, on their 21st chromosome. So 3/21. So we celebrated yesterday by going to Special Olympics, and Michael got to participate in a few events. And when I got there, Michael is doesn't use language the same way that you and I do. So he speaks with a device and he's pre-verbal, I like to say, instead of nonverbal. And so he senses presence in a different way. He can really feel if you're in the room with him. And that's really all he wants. I think that's all kids want in general, but him specifically, because of the difference in how he communicates, he can really feel it. So I decided yesterday that I was going to give him the gift of being fully present with him when I went to Special Olympics. And when I got there, I put my phone down, put everything away, and I just sat with him. And for about 20 minutes, we just watched the world go by. And he was just leaning into me, and I could feel his little hand and his skin. And it was precious. No words were spoken. It was a beautiful sunny day. It's a little bit chilly, so we were snuggled up. And we just watched the day go by. And when it was time for us to get up and move and go down to one of the events, Michael stood up and turned around and looked at me. And in that one moment, it was as if we were the same. Like we were one. There was no barrier between us. I looked into his eyes and I could see the bright blue clear of his eyes. And it was just a moment or two, but it was transformational. It was like, wow. And I really think that came from spending that time with him and being there and being present, and then him turning around. And I think we see each other through our eyes and just being together. And so for me, that is savoring the sweetness of life. There was nothing going through my mind about work or later or stress or anything else other than what was in that moment. And so that's what we talk about when we talk about mindfulness. A lot of times it feels hard, right? Like I've got to go pay attention to every single thing I'm doing. But really in every moment, there's an opportunity to just be present, especially if there's another person in that moment. And I want to check in really quick and see, Tara, are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't get my camera to turn on.
Oh, that's okay. We know what your beautiful self looks like. Well, I want you to chime in because this is one of your strategies for joy. And just want to hear a little bit about what you're hearing and how that relates, especially as it relates to the science of it.
Oh, thank you. Yes, this is one of I love all the strategies of joy, but I really, Kathryn, I learned to lean into this practice, and I really call it a practice, partly from knowing you, because I see you do that. I see you savor moments, and especially I see you savor moments with your children that I think I missed out on when my children were that young. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Good. I'm sorry about the camera. It's something about settings. So this has become a practice for me. It's not just you do it or you don't. It's very intentional. And I'll tell you someone else that has helped me to learn it, to lean into little moments of savoring sounds and smells and leaning into all my senses. And that is my daughter, Caroline.
Yeah.
She is cognitively very challenged, and the smallest, simplest tasks for her, I used to worry so much that must be boring. But as I watch her, the way that she takes care of little tasks, it's a beautiful example of what savoring moments and activities and smells and sounds can do. And two of those examples are when I let her help. The big one really is when I let her help me in the kitchen, because, I'm married to a German engineer who thinks everything's about efficiency. And she does everything very slowly. But if I start early enough and just hand her one zucchini or one tomato, or give her the cilantro and ask her to pull the leaves off the stems, it is something to really do, just like what you did with Michael, just to sit and watch and feel and listen. And she's completely devoted to that task. She makes sure that everything is straight and in order. She takes her time. And I realized that she's getting out of that the same thing that we do when we're intentional about savoring moments and smells, which reduces cortisol, elevates the happy chemicals in our brain that I'm known to talk about, and helps us to experience life better. But it does take practice.
I love that you're saying that. And I can attest to it experientially yesterday. Like my stress level was completely, I wouldn't say it's gone, but it was so reduced from what it normally is when I was there with him. It was like we were in this bubble of the stadium, and I was just focused on him and all of the people around us. And I did feel a lot calmer. So that's really interesting. And as you're saying that too, the practice, that is the piece I think that's so helpful, because when I showed up there, I decided, okay, I'm going to just really just be in the moment and savor this time with him, and had to keep bringing myself back there. And so it really, it is a practice. And as you're talking about Caroline, Michael does the same thing. He loves the sound, all sounds, but he loves the sound. There she is. Look at that. So she loves the sound of he loves the sound of the ping pong balls dropping, right? And so I got down on his level at one point and I put my ear to the ground and listened to the ping pong balls. Because I was saying, it's like, gosh, this must be really boring. He'll just go around the room and drop a ping pong ball. And then he'll go and close the door and go around the room again, those same surfaces, and drop the ping pong ball. And when I got in that moment with him and just was with him and did all the things that he was doing, it was actually really fun. I was like, oh my gosh, like who knew that a ping pong ball could make that many different sounds? So it really is fascinating. And it is a choice and it is a practice of how do we remind ourselves that in this moment, there's a person with me, or there's something to pay attention to, or there's a smell, or, something that I want to remember, because this moment is, not going to be here forever.
So as I listen to you tell this, I'm wondering, like, from other listeners, if the thinking could be, well, it's easier for people of simpler minds to do that than it may be for us who has so much more stress on us. And I have some thoughts on that, but what's your thought on that?
I want to hear yours first.
Well, I will take us a step back and say that I've heard my whole life, everything happens for a reason. And I've never, ever liked that saying. But I also think that we are given the will and the power and the ability to bring good from everything that's not ideal in life. And I think that we can learn from people like Michael and Caroline. And that's one of the many gifts of the fact that they are neurodiverse and they experience this world differently than we do. And while they have much to learn, I think that we have a lot to learn from them too. And what a gift that is.
It's so true. It's so true, because Michael really does teach me how to be present. And this is a funny story. He senses if you are in the room physically, and then also like really with him in the room. And if you're not, he will get you in that room one way or another. He'll try gently at first, nudge. And if I'm still distracted, one of the ways he does it is, and this is really when it gets to this is sort of the last straw for him. He'll go to the silverware drawer and he'll pull out 2 huge handfuls of silverware and chuck them.
Oh boy.
Just throw them across the room. Now, I can tell you, if you're in a room when silverware goes flying and there's 20 pieces of silverware that hit the floor all at the same time, you will snap back into the moment. But it's kind of brilliant. Really, it's kind of brilliant though. Like, he's learned, how do I get this person with me? And those are the people that he's really drawn to, the people that are really present, who don't push him, who don't want anything from him, who aren't trying to get him to do something like somebody else or like we think he should do it, who just allow him to be.
Right.
So I think you're right. We do have so much to learn. And I would say we have so much to learn from everybody. I almost sometimes when people say we have a lot to learn from, like Michael and Caroline, for instance, or even anybody at the Special Olympics event yesterday, I thought we have the same amount to learn from every other person. If we're curious, how many times have you had a conversation with the grocery store clerk and been like, whoa, or somebody random, like, So, and that's part of how I make it a practice. Is like when I'm in those moments, like the grocery store, sometimes I'll stop and look at the person. If I don't want to engage in conversation, I will look at the person and notice the lines on their face or how their hair falls and get kind of curious about it. And if I'm wanting to have conversation, then I'll just ask a random question and start talking. But that is a way that, we can bring that into practice more and more in some of our everyday moments.
Yeah, I'm wondering how we can continue to elevate the practice and why it matters. And it makes me think of a scientific journalist. Her name's Florence Williams, and she wrote a book, How to Science Hack Heartbreak. And I haven't read the book, but I've studied a little bit about her work. And she said something that I think really leans into what we're talking about. And she talks about the science behind it. And what she calls it is microdosing awe. She said, if we take the time There is awe and wonder all around us, and we are missing it. And those are moments that can elevate our experiences, which generates that beautiful energy that we then have to give back to the people that matter most in our lives.
I love that. Somebody said one time, next time you go to turn on the faucet, stop and wonder if water is really going to come out. Because in some places it doesn't.
Exactly.
And to think about that, when we turn the water on, I mean, of course we expect an expectation the water is going to come out, but to stop. And then to your point, like awe of like, how did this gadget come to be? Like, where does the water come from? And I love what you're saying about microdosing awe, because the way it works for me is to also pay attention to how I feel when I do that, like that moment yesterday of being there, to not skip over that. It's the celebration part. Like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Because that reminds me that, oh, this isn't hard to do. I can go be present with someone else right now, and I'm going to feel amazing. So it's kind of that full loop of like reinforcing that this is an awesome way to be in the world. Mm-hmm. Like, why does this computer work? This is really bizarre. Like, how did that come to be? Like, all of those moments. You're right. There are so many opportunities for awe and joy in each and every moment.
I also think that because you and I have intentionally practiced this, I don't know that I actually agree with the fact that it's easy to do. And I'll tell you why. There were years where I was triple tasking all the time. I took a lot of pride in it. I had my cigarette, my cell phone, my Diet Mountain Dew, my music going, all the things. And if someone said, you ought to turn all that crap off, roll down your window and just smell the air when you drive through the North Georgia mountains, that was part of my territory. And Kathryn, I am telling you that the thought of doing that back in those years would have felt next to impossible to me.
Yeah. I
didn't know it at the time, but we use all those stimulants, and I don't mean just the nicotine and the caffeine, but the work, I was constantly like, trying to accomplish something working while driving. Okay. And if not that, then it was like some hyped up music. I was avoiding facing the pain in my life. And when we take moments to catch our breath and savor things fully and be in the moment, it's scary to some of us at certain times in life. And I don't want to dust over that, because I think to say that it's simple at certain stages in certain people's lives, it almost could feel scary. So that's where we kind of go back to the micro dosing of it, just give it a little shot, little try here and there.
Yeah. Well, and I guess you said easy and simple, and I think I said easy. And I think those are two different things. I think it is simple.
So true.
Simply stop and do the thing. I mean, it's not complicated.
Right.
And I agree with you. It isn't always easy. And that's why those little moments, because sometimes when I'm in that place and I know I need to go do the thing, let's say meditate, and I don't want to, I'll make a deal with myself and I'll meditate for 1 minute. Literally, like that's it. That's all you have to do is just 1 minute. Now I always end up doing more, right? Because you're there.
Yeah.
And it actually didn't feel too bad. And it wasn't, but those are the little teeny tiny steps that we can take sometimes.
So that makes me want to ask you a question, because I have, since as long as I've known you and gotten to know you, I've been in awe of your ability to do that. And it makes me wonder, did you ever have a time in your life where you couldn't imagine slowing down and doing something like that?
Oh yeah. Tons. I mean, yeah. I mean, I would say up until, until recently. Yeah. But specifically, I would say when I was running a business from a hospital room. Yeah. Michael was born. I was running a business. I don't know. We had 15, 20 employees, and Michael was in the hospital at that time more than he wasn't. And stuff couldn't stop. And, and also because he was having seizures, he was kind of, I wouldn't say catatonic, but he wasn't responding to much. He was eyes glassed over. So there wasn't a whole lot of like, hey, let's hang out. And he was a baby. And so I would be there and do all the things, but I mean, I could only stand by the bed and shake a rattle so many times, and nothing was happening. And so, yeah, so I got really busy. If you had told me to sit down and meditate at that time, I remember I planned his first maybe it was his second birthday because his first birthday. No, it was his first birthday party, but he had his first birthday in the hospital. But I planned the first birthday party, and his dad was like, "You've lost your mind." I made little like fry boxes that we put little treats in, all decorated with his name and printed. I mean, all these teeny tiny little, I mean, it was Pinterest worthy for sure.
Right.
But it was using that energy to just avoid I just needed to stay busy. I had papers strewn all across the hospital room. So yeah, totally.
That is a hell of a story. I never knew. I knew the journey with Michael, but I didn't know that you were in that place of just like staying busy.
Oh yeah. I mean, gosh, you know how hospitals are. I mean, they drain you,
yes,
you know, and and especially if there isn't a lot to do. It's a lot of downtime, especially on the weekends. You know, during the week, you've got doctors coming in and things, but otherwise, and life's going on, and yeah, it's awful. So distraction, it was my best friend, you know.
Mm-hmm. That makes me think of one of the times when Caroline was in the hospital for a long time. I wasn't as ambitious as you. Do you know what I did to stay busy? I ate Firehouse subs. I waddled out of there. There was one across the street, and I was walking over there just because Mike and I still laugh about it, but it was still, I mean, it goes back to, I just needed some form of dopamine and pleasure.
Yeah. Mine was candy.
Just to
I would
get against the trauma of the moment.
Yeah. Mine was candy. I would get Runts candy, those awful little pure balls of sugar. And I would pop them, and I would just be like, wired, but it was the same thing. It was like popping pills. I was just like, give me those Runts. I want the biggest box you got. And when are you getting another shipment? Like, yeah. Runts and Firehouse subs. We don't recommend it. So on that note, I see Ron has a question. Ron has his hand raised. Ron, yes.
Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. And one thing I experienced, last week I was away, and I was away on vacation. Surely I didn't have anything to do, but I did rush myself to get a lot of things done before I left. Mm-hmm. And then coming back, a lot of things got done. But right now, I'm kind of in a still mode. I'm not as speeding. I'm not as in the speed that I was before I left for vacation. So, and I was there. I was in Europe actually, and I got a chance to really sit back and think a little bit. Like, what am I going to do next? And one thing I do realize is, we define being speedy. We define speeding. We are fast in America. We just have to learn how to slow down. And really, like, I stayed with a family where everybody got a chance to eat breakfast all the way. There was 3 kids in the house, three young teenagers, 2 teenagers and one younger one. They spend time to sit down and eat breakfast. Mm-hmm. They get together at noon and eat lunch and really sit tight. In the evening to really, and everybody is busy. The mom has to take the kids, out mm-hmm. for one was on a horse practice and the other one played a piano, and the oldest one happened to be working. She's 16. She's happened to be working at a store. But what I'm really getting back to this conversation is really learn to slow down. Mm. And the learn to slow down is something that we definitely need to practice. I wake up a lot earlier lately and do meditation, but that's a key to it for me, is really say every moment of the day, I'm going to have to really connecting and pay attention to what I can learn from somebody like Caroline and forget your Michael. Mm-hmm. So in any interaction, how any interaction can be successful and productive to anyone in the moment, and right. especially to yourself. So I am really learning. Like right now, I don't have a project. I mean, most of my projects are really in a stealth mode, you know, moving to the next step. So I don't have to do the work myself, but I am really wanting to slow down.
I love that. Thank you for saying that. That's great.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what comes to me when you say that is, again, Michael. I used to rush him I have to pick him up midday, take him to therapy. And I used to rush and just shove him in the car and then yank him out of the car. And we got there and push him, nudge him along as we walk down, you know. And Tara knows this from us going on vacation together and how he walks very slowly. And part of it is his physical ability. And then the other is he's also like, what was that sound? And he'll listen and then he'll keep going, you know? So I built in 10, 15 more minutes on either side of those journeys so that I can gracefully allow him to get in the car instead of shoving him and allow him to walk out. And then when we walk in, I mean, we are just pitter-patter in our way in, and I enjoy it, and I'm not rushed. So I think it's such an important piece of what you're describing. Thank you, Ronald.
Yeah.
And I see Sorrel has his hand up too.
Good morning, all. Tara and Kathryn, when you created that question, when I first saw it, I said, oh my God, what a beautiful question. And here's what I'm hearing in the entire conversation. You say, how do you savor the sweetness of life? So where I went, I said, oh, it's the sweetness of life itself. Not that my life is sweet because I'm doing X, Y, or Z, or because I have X, Y, or Z. Could it be that life itself is sweet? So it's opened up something magical for me. And what it opened up is that you pointed to micro dosing on awe.
Yes.
And what came up for me when you said that inside of that life itself is sweet is that, oh my God, maybe anything that's happening in this moment is sweet and awesome. And I can microdose on even the worst things as awe. Like I stubbed my toe. Oh my God, that's awesome. Right? It's painful, but
you know what?
Life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. One of my favorite authors, Michael Singer, says, you know what a miracle is? It's something that happens 0.00001% of the time. You know what a tragedy is? It's something that happens 0.00001% of the time. We put the spin on it, just like you described. Like it, you know, if it's neutral, it's awe. And I love what you're saying because it.
Oh, you know, so there's a huge amount of freedom over here, right? I actually don't have to, quote unquote, slow down or speed up. It's the way it is now. And dang, that's awesome. And if I want to do or be some other way, by looking at it this way, it puts a certain amount of responsibility over here. Where, well, if I don't like the awesome that's right now, let me do some other awesome thing.
No matter, totally. Like I always tell myself to stop trying to get through activities and get into them. And it's a completely different way to experience anything from pumping gas to folding the laundry to working on a project, all those things. I tell myself, stop trying to get through this and get in it. Yeah.
That's a great reframe. That's a wonderful reframe.
Yeah. And I definitely, before we sign off, I want to touch too on what Ronald was saying about slowing down, because it's always been hard for me. It has always been. And I wonder if anyone's thinking, well, I don't have time to slow down. And here's what I've learned about slowing down is that it gives us more time back, because then we have stamina to devote more of ourselves for longer hours of the day. We need less of the, okay, I've been going so hard all day long that now I need the Netflix and the popcorn and the wine and everybody leave me alone. Or we slow down, we look for awe, we savor every activity, every conversation, every human being, and we can take that same energy all the way through into our evening. And so I think that slowing down pays off in productivity and in joy.
I love it. I think you're right. Thank you, everybody, for another wonderful conversation. I'm going to be taking this with me through the day and getting into activities. I love that way of thinking about it. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to sign off like we normally do. And I just have to start with love, because what I read about Michael yesterday is he is so full of love. He gives it unconditionally and all the time. He doesn't even know what a grudge is. And so give of your love. Love people exactly where they are, how they are. It's a beautiful experience, and we all deserve it. We're all worthy of it. And laugh out loud. That'll allow you to stress less, eat mostly plants, give. I love the give. Give of your spirit, give of your time, and give of your presence. Sleep, get those 7 hours, and move that body. We'll see y'all next time on the Daily Huddle, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Excellent job. Bye.